There's good news that we need to be done and out of here by noon. My name is Barbara Friedman. I'm the president of the Orient Association. This forum has been organized by the North Fork Civics of Southold, a coalition of 7 Catholic civic organizations, including Fisher's Island. Today, we're going to meet the candidates for all local Southold Town offices, and then ask candidates for town supervisor and town council, aka town board, to answer some questions submitted by the community. We want to thank Beth Young of the East End Beacon for recording this forum and for posting it on the Beacon's YouTube channel. You can also watch the video of the October 19th candidates forum on the East End Beacon's YouTube channel. Early voting starts today at the Southold Town Recreation Center and continues through November 5th. You can find the schedule on the OA website and various other websites too. We want to thank our organizers and moderators who are over on the other side. Julianne Benner, and she's the vice president of the Orient Association, and Ellen Zimmerman, the president of the East everyone, please silence your cell phones, and also please refrain from clapping, cheering, or booing during the forum. Since our time is limited, let's get started.
First, I'd like to go over the program for today's forum. All the candidates will first be allowed 3 minutes for an introductory statement. After that, only the town supervisor and the town council members will be asked questions. The same question will be posed to each candidate in rotating order, and each candidate will have up to 2 minutes to answer. The timekeeper, that's she's right here. The hard one. Right. We'll be given a 15-second warning, and then we'll be audible, right?
Yes. And I'll be holding up the sign for 30 seconds.
Okay. I'll give a 30-second warning and then a 15-second. That's why I'm okay. After that, when your time is up, you're going to be, that's it, you're going to stop. Candidates will be given brownie points for short answers, especially if they agree with the previous speaker. At the end of the questions, each candidate will be given up to 2 minutes to sum up. Okay? If we have time, we'll take questions from the audience.
Okay, so now we're on to our 3-minute introductions. Candidates, you have a choice. You can stand up in place for your 3-minute introduction, or you can come over here to the podium. We have these mics here, they're wired, and the mics will be right here. So we're going to start with Republicans first for each role, and then we're going to, when we do Q&A, we're going to switch, and the Dems will go first, Democrats will go first. So we're going to go roll by roll. So first is Southold Town Supervisor, so Donald Groom. Republicans are going first this time, and the reason for that is because for the last forum, the Democrats were first. So we're switching. Okay.
My name is Donald Grimm. I moved out to Southold in the 70s. In the 80s, I started a business up on Oregon Road in Cutchogue. In the late 80s, I married my girlfriend of 7 years. I actually engaged her out on the wharf, and I didn't realize that that was going to be a journey which brought me to Orient. We have 3 great girls. My oldest one, Jennifer, works for Macy's corporate headquarters. My next one down, Danielle, is a CPA for Ernst & Young. youngest one, Tracy, she went through the DARE program, and ROTC, went into the Navy, became an anti-submarine warfare officer. She saw battle in the Mediterranean, and she made it home safe. I'm very proud. Her husband, David, is a Marine. He also made it home safe. When Tracy was younger, George Koch found out that she was a good sailor, and she sailed at the Orient Yacht Club with George Koch, and then they asked us to become members. So we became members of the Orient Yacht Club about 12 years ago, and I've been cooking on the grill. Everybody's laughing because most of you know. I've been cooking on the grill since then, and it's a great place, it's a great club, it's a great town. And I never thought that first day to ask my wife to marry me that I would just come back in full circle. And here I am running for a position to protect this town and leave it exactly the way it was, or even go back 5 years and try to keep it the way it was. So thank you very much.
Alan Krupski.
Good morning, my name is Al Krupski. I'm running for Southold Town Supervisor. Thank you to the Civics for running these candidate forums. It's really encouraging to see people come and to see the candidates. It's really encouraging to have so many people want to step forward to run for public office. Being a public servant is a challenging thing, and I think it's great in a small town because you do get to know your neighbors. And I think it's really wonderful that there's young people like Bill Flinter and Nick Krupski who want to do that, because it's good to have that generational, like, integration of ideas and thought process, because believe it or not, sometimes they kind of think differently from each other. So that's a healthy thing to have in government, though, to have that kind of diversity in age, because you see things differently. So I'm married to Mary. We have 3 children. Besides Nick, we have Colleen and Kim. We have 5 grandchildren, and there's 1 on the way any minute. So we're very blessed there. They all live in town. I was first elected in 1985 to the Southold Town Board of Trustees. I served as a trustee for 20 years, last 14 as chairman. I got elected in 2005 to the Southold Town Board, and I served there for 7 years, the last year as deputy supervisor. And then I was asked to run for county legislature, and I got elected in a special election in 2013. So I got elected in January, served the year, and had to run for re-election in November. And I've been elected there. That's a 2-year term. I've been elected there ever since. So I could have 1 more term, but when Scott Russell, and I have to say, Scott Russell and I go way back. We served together very well on the town board, and I knew him before then from high school. And he's done so much for this town. I just wanted to say that he should be recognized for his contributions and his hard work. So there's a lot of issues that we're going to discuss today. I hope we're going to get into the water quality issues, water quantity issues. I served as a legislator on Council of Environmental Quality, under the Environmental Trust Board, on the Suffolk County Sewer Agency, Suffolk County Infrastructure Fund, and there's a lot to do on the North Fork that affects water quality. Obviously, with the county, they have a land preservation program also that works well with the town's land preservation program. And so there's a lot of different good experiences that I've had over my career that make this town what it was. When you look at the contributions of someone like Dan Ross, who was on the town board when 20 years ago, when a lot of land use things were put into place, that's why we have the town that we have. So we have to go back and kind of look at the past successes to move this process forward. So thank you.
Okay, so now we're going to move on to the Southold Town Council candidates. Jill, you're first.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for organizing this event. Everybody in today's technology can read all about us, but it's so much nicer face to face. And that's why I've been, since end of July, beginning of August, I've been knocking on doors, meeting people that I don't know. Believe it or not, there's people that I don't know out here. A lot of people here I know. A little bit of background about me. My family subdivided Gardner's Bay Estates. The Thorpe family's been involved in the Orient Yacht Club since its inception, and we have some roots here that I'm proud of. Gardner's Bay Estates, I've learned from my grandparents, my parents, that, you know, it's important to keep, you know, you have to have houses, you have to, you know, people live there, but it was important for my grandfather to keep that a wooded area. And, you know, he taught us about the ecosystem, the waterways, and, you know, growing up with the oyster factory still in operation. So that's where I learned the, you know, the love of the environment that we have out here. I worked in, you know, restaurants and banks, so I've always been in service industry, and in the 80s I got a chance to apply to town hall, and in the late 80s I became a clerk at town hall, and I worked with Al and the trustees. I served as the trustee clerk for 12 years. I left that position because I just had my second child, so I raised my two children, Sarah and Brian, in Poquatuck School District. And they're in their late 20s now, and I'm feeling old. But they're doing well. My son's an environmentalist. He's actually doing a job in Colorado right now teaching young kids environmental science, which was important to him to teach the generation below him about the environment. And my daughter's in communications. In 2005, I was asked to run for trustee, and I said, no, I don't want to do the politics, you know. So I said, but who knows more about the trustees than the clerk did? So I said, you know, I can really make a difference, because as clerk, I saw the changes that needed to be made in the environmental code to keep the environment as special as it is out here. So I was able to, I said, you know what, I can be a legislator now, and I was able to make some good changes with that. And then I was asked to run on the town board, and I've been on the town board since 2012. The first year was with Al, and I've been under Scott's, you know, supervisor ever since. And we're at a critical time right now when we're overlay zoning and things, and there's a lot to be done. My passion is still there. There's a lot of projects I'm working on that I'll let you know as we go on. But thank you for all being here and listening to us and asking us questions.
Hey, Gwen Schroeder.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for having us. Thank you to Poquatuck Hall and the Civics for hosting. So my name is Gwen Schroeder, and I'm running for a seat on the Southold Town Board. I've spent most of my life in Poquatuck, and my kids are fifth generation Poquatuck High School graduates. My grandfather was a local journalist and editor, and he also owned Academy Printing in Southold before he sold it in the mid-70s. And my great-grandfather had a chicken farm on West Valley Road, and I don't remember the chicken farm, but I remember him very fondly. My kids have lived all over the place. They've lived in Taiwan, Nashville, Ithaca, and 3 of them came back. 3 of my 4 kids came back, and because they love it here. In fact, I have one of them living with me right now, my 43-year-old daughter and her partner. And it's actually it's fun having them around, but they want their own place, and I get that. So my background, I'm going to be quick. You can read about it on the website. I was a registered nurse for 15 years. My last job was at drug rehab. Part of my job was doing AIDS education, testing, and counseling. After I left nursing, I started volunteering for North Fork Environmental Council. They eventually hired me, and I eventually became their executive director. So I have a long history of environmental advocacy. Most recently, I served on the Preserve Plum Island Steering Committee, and I was on the board of North Fork Audubon. And I should say that I represented North Fork Environmental Council on the Plum Island Coalition Steering Committee. So the 2 things that I really think are important are housing, and you can call it affordable housing, community housing, workforce housing. We need housing for people. We can't build our way out of this problem, but we can certainly address to our environment. And whether that threats come from climate change or inappropriate development or deer or pollution, we have to look at things from a bird's eye view. They're complicated, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't address them. So I hope you read more about me on the website. I'm really excited. I'm lucky enough that I can afford to take this job. So this will be my only job. And I think it's really going to be a full-time job because half of these jobs that you have in government are reading. And I forgot to mention, for the last 11 years, I worked for Suffolk County Legislator Al Krupski in his office. I advise him, I've served on committees. I'm on the TIC advisory committee for him. I've dealt with lots of energy issues, legislative committees with energy and water conservation. So I have a good perspective of inside and outside government. So thanks for coming. I look forward to your questions. Thanks so much.
Steve Kiley.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks again for hosting us and driving out here to Orient. It's absolutely breathtaking. When you think about the soul of Southold Town, it's Orient. So my name is Stephen Kiley and I'm running for town board. I'm a married father of 4, and I'm running because Southold Town's rural character, steeped in agriculture, is on the verge of being forgotten. Development pressures are circling us like wolves, whether it's mega hotels, apartment complexes, battery storage facilities, or an overreaching government, who, if she had her way, would force 50 new homes to be built in Orient and East Marion alone every 3 years. I hope you heard that. In this environment, qualifications matter more than ever. And between my opponents and myself, I'm the only candidate who has 20 years experience as a municipal attorney, including as an assistant town attorney for Brookhaven Town, Southampton Town, Southold Town. I'm currently the Shelter Island Town Attorney. I served as a prosecutor for villages such as Greenport and West Hampton Dunes. I wrote zoning laws for these municipalities, particularly here in Southold. I wrote the transient rental prohibition and the historic preservation district law. I prosecuted violations of the Southold Town Code. I established Southold Town's code enforcement office out of the town attorney's office. I provided legal counsel to the town board, zoning board, planning board, board of trustees. I provided legal counsel to the building department and planning department in this town. And I'm also currently the Poquatuck Park District Attorney. And I worked with the East Marion Orient Park District to try to get a handle on the abuses occurring at Truman's Beach. Along with qualifications, though, you need a fighter. And you need a fighter to keep this town rural. And let me be crystal clear where I stand. I'm a hard no to mega hotels, apartment complexes, battery storage facilities, and sprawl. And I'm a resounding yes to farmers, families. I will finally bring the indoor sports complex to this town that we desperately need. I'm a resounding yes to small town, small business, and home rule. Thank you, and I look forward to answering your questions.
Ken Smith.
Good morning, everyone. I too want to thank the Civics for putting this together, and having been a Civic president, I know what goes into getting something like this to work well, and you're doing a great job.
Could you speak louder?
I sure can. I also want to let you know, as principal, very often our incoming kindergarten children will be counting how many more sleeps until school starts, and there are 10 more sleeps until election day. I'm counting. Community and interdependence. Those are 2 words that have really stuck with me since our last forum when we were at PAST. And the term interdependence is really becoming part of how I'm thinking about imagining myself as a town councilwoman. Because the more I listen to the questions we get, the things people are saying to us, whether it's we need more pickleball courts, and what are you gonna do about water quality, and my daughter can't afford to live here, the number of things that people are concerned about will require careful, balanced leadership. Now, is it too low? Good, thank you. So back to community. Community matters to me above all else, and I thought when I started running, like, that's kind of simple. And then I maybe need to get more layered. But the more I've listened, I'm circling right back to that belief. With a strong, connected community, when we know our neighbors, I've actually had people say to me, I've started to invite my neighbors over because I realized since COVID, I don't know them anymore. We need to reconnect as a community so we can tackle the big issues of the pressure of development. We can tackle the issues around housing and water quality. We can look at building a strong, thriving economic community. And that's why this conversation matters. And I believe we can tackle multiple issues at the same time. In 1985, my husband Ron and I bought our home in Manitow. By 1996, I became principal at Poquatuck East, and eventually superintendent of schools. Raising our 3 children here has been the greatest gift. It takes leadership and community work, and I believe my work in the school system prepares me well for the same kind of issues a town council person would be dealing with, whether it's fighting Albany, asking for money for projects that we need, or moving from what I see now as from division to decisions. We need to move from planning into action. And I am just so grateful to this community and look forward to your questions today. Thanks.
I didn't catch your name.
Ann Smith.
Thank you.
All right, now we are going to be moving on to Southold Town Justice, and first up is Brian Hughes.
Good morning. The second paragraph of the Declaration of Independence speaks how we are endowed by our Creator with certain inalienable rights, including the right to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. The only way those can be curtailed or limited would be by the judicial branch of government, not the executive, not the legislature. So, how do we pick our judges? Well, it's not an easy choice. You have to choose wisely. The awesome responsibility that a judge has, the decisions that they need to make, is also in your hands. You have to make the decisions on how to do it. Well, how do you decide? Well, judicial candidates aren't allowed to speak to the issues that you just heard about. We can't discuss the issues about clean water, pickleball courts, or anything else. We're limited to our experiences, our history, the record that we have. Now, how do you find out about us? What tools do you need to help yourselves make these decisions? Well, if you stick to evidence and standards, you can get some answers. Suffolk County, like most bar associations, has a screening committee. Screening committee consists of experienced trial attorneys who've had years and years of experience dealing with judges. I have some of my own part. I know some of these people. But it's a kind of convoluted process that you have to go through. You've got to do a lengthy response to written questions that they have. You have to sit down in a panel and be screened by and interviewed by 20, 25 really experienced attorneys. I did that. I'm the only person here who qualified for 2023 as a qualified judicial candidate. When you appear before these people, there's 2 choices. You're either qualified or you're not. I'm qualified. So that explains the general legal theory about the legal system. You don't have experience, you have to rely on certain other people. Now, what other aspects do we have that in Southold makes us kind of special? Well, we have a Southold Town Justice Court. I actually love that name, it's a justice court. It deals with a lot of different things, but by definition, it's a local criminal court by statute. We understand this. Rules of civil procedure, criminal procedure, deal with 95% of the cases that are handled there. That means if we were to discuss for an hour what goes on in that court, 3 minutes would be spent on activities less than CPO. Now, how do you know that I can handle these issues that come before the court? I've done it before. As a matter of fact, of all the law enforcement agencies that deal with this court have endorsed me. State Police, FOP, Suffolk County Police. Thank you.
Okay, next is Dan Ross.
Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Dan Ross, and I'm seeking re-election to the position of Southold Town Justice. I've been an attorney for 40 years. I've been in the private practice of law since 1985 with offices in Mattituck. In my practice, I have partners. My job, basically, in the practice is to take care of the difficult cases that get into the Supreme Court in Riverhead for trials and for resolution. My partners pick the easy fruit. I deal with the heavy ones. In addition to my private practice, I've been the village attorney for Greenport. I spent 4 years as a member of the Southold Town Board. I've been appointed on 2 occasions as a special assistant district attorney for purposes of enforcing codes. I know the community, I know the law. My wife and I have raised 3 children in this community. I've served in various volunteer capacities, such as president of my homeowners association, since as president of the board of directors for the San Simeon Nursing Home. I'm still on that board. I've coached the youth. I belong to clubs, community clubs, and professional clubs. One of the professional clubs I belong to is the Suffolk County Bar Association. I've been a member of the Bar Association since 1985. So it came as a surprise to me when I saw published in the Suffolk Times my opponent's statement that he was the only one who has been found qualified. I've run for justice a few times. I've been found qualified every time, and I was found qualified this time. Nonetheless, my partner, you heard him today, say, Mr. Hughes said he is the only candidate Suffolk County Bar Association Judiciary Screening Committee has found qualified for judicial office in this election. That's not true. I'm going to read to you a letter from the Suffolk County Bar Association Judicial Screening Committee, August 31st of this year. Dear Judge Ross, congratulations upon conclusion of its deliberations. The members of the Suffolk County Bar Association Judicial Screening Committee have found you qualified for Southold Town Justice. Not a big surprise. It's the 4th time it's happened. What do you do with that? What do you do with that? What happens when respect for an adversary and the misstatement of facts comes into, I'm finished. I need to go to the Justice Court for an arraignment, so excuse my absence from here on in.
And moving on to, please, Southold Town Tax Assessor. So, Michael Kozinski, please.
Good morning. First, I'd like to thank everybody for coming today on such a beautiful day. Again, my name is Mike Kozinski. I am running for Southold Town Assessor. A little about myself. I attended school in the city, went there as a meteorology major. So what do you do with that? You end up running a bookstore. So Ran a bookstore in World Trade Center, $25 million store. I had a staff of about 110. Did that for a number of years. From there, I went into health management in an optical company. Basically, what I did there was educations for various locations in the Northeast. Basically, there was about 2,500 locations that I had to deal with. So, you have health management questions, I'm probably a good person to go to. And then, as a few years ago, I am now employed by Poquatuck Landing as an EMT. My wife and I moved down here into Southold about 25 years ago. We both fell in love with the North Fork. She fell in love with it first before I did. She used to come out here as a child. And I fell into love the area myself, and we loved how just the area just embraced us both. Eventually we had a son, and you know, once you have a son, next thing you know, you're coaching Little League, hockey, even lacrosse. My wife volunteered me to coach at lacrosse, even though I told her, I said, you know, when did you last remember me ever bringing lacrosse up in any conversation? So, shortly after that, I did join the Southold Fire Department because I did want to give back to the community. Became an interior firefighter, EMT, and in 2017 for Southold I was the EMT of the year, which I'm proud of. After that, I became an officer in the fire department. Lastly, being captain. Basically, when you're captain, part of your job is if you're going into a burning building, you're leading the hose team into the building. First one in, last one out. So, and we'll see if maybe next year I do become chief. We'll see about that. My son, Jack, is a freshman at University of Buffalo, and I did say to my wife, I said, part of the reason why I'm running is because what is he coming back to in 4 years? Houses that are $1 million homes, high taxes, and so on. So part of why I'm running is to see if I have any say in it. I can pull down the taxes and give our kids and our grandkids affordable housing. So, again, I thank everybody for coming today.
Bill Flinter.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for coming out today. Beautiful day, finally a nice Saturday. I'll be brief so we can all get out and enjoy the day and let Al make it back to the farm because I know they're certainly going to be busy today. So I'm William Flinter and I'm running for Southold Town Tax Assessor. I think everyone's here today for 2 reasons. You want to know my qualifications and why am I running. My qualifications, I graduated from Siena College in 2008, just in time to see my generation's largest housing and financial collapse. I came home, there weren't a lot of financial jobs available. I started working for Capital One on Shelter Island, Greenport, Southold, and Poquatuck. I've worked for a variety of different financial institutions. So again, Capital One, I was a financial advisor with Morgan Stanley. I've worked for Farm Credit East, gave me the opportunity to work with our agricultural community, our farmers, vineyards, nurseries. Most recently, M&T Bank in Poquatuck, where I am NMLS licensed. So I handle home equity loans, mortgage underwriting. I have a very good understanding of our housing market out here. Why am I running? I love this town. I'm very proud to live here. I met my wife from Mattatuk High School. Our 2 children attend Poquatuck East Elementary School, and this town has given me so very much. I'll just leave you with a quick quote. Again, I'm a little nervous. I'm starting to shake here. I don't know why. It doesn't get any easier no matter how many times you've been up here. But I'll just leave you with a quick quote. Happiness is the expansion of self, but true joy is when you lose yourself in service to others and you forget where you end and someone else begins. And to me, that's what community means. And that's why I want to use my skill set and my gifts to give back to the community and serve as Southold Town Tax Assessor. So thank you all for your time. I hope I can have you vote in November.
And now we're moving on to Southold Town trustees. So first will be Glenn Goldsmith.
Good morning, thank you to the Civics Association and for everyone for showing up today. My name is Glenn Goldsmith and I'm running for re-election as town trustee. I've had the honor and privilege of serving as a trustee for the last 8 years, and with your support, I hope to continue that service. A little background about myself: lifelong Southold Town resident, currently live in Mattituck with my wife and 2 sons, work in my family business, Goldsmith's Boat Shop in Southold, running a small business marine dealership. My livelihood and the livelihood of my family depends on a healthy and robust local marine environment that everyone can enjoy. Having a marina also gives me a front row seat to the issues and challenges that we face with living on the water. It has given me knowledge and empathy for those that we deal with as trustees. I face the same challenges as they do, go through the same processes, pay the same costs and fees, so I get it, I understand. I'm a 28-year member of the Southold Fire Department, an organization that has taught me the true meaning of community service. It is a dedicated group of men and women working together to help anyone in their time of need, regardless of who they are, where they come from, or what political party they belong to. It is simply about doing what is right for helping your neighbors and community. And I strongly believe that that sense of community service directly translates to public service. To me, running for a trustee or any elected position is just an extension of that community service. And I don't think that it's a coincidence that a number of the folks up here running with me are firefighters. For example, Mike Kaczynski, I've served with him on the Southold Fire Department for a number of years, and I can vouch for him. I know that if he's willing to give up his free time to help his community, you can rest assured that he'll give that same dedication to serving the people of Southold Town as an assessor. As I mentioned earlier, I've been on trustees for the last 8 years, serving alongside my friend and colleague, Trustee. During my time as trustee, I've been fortunate to work with and learn from some very knowledgeable and dedicated people. I've learned about the delicate balance between property rights and use and the protection of our vital bays, creeks, and wetlands. It is a responsibility that I take very seriously. I am committed to working together to address the issues that we face with knowledge, experience, and respect. I am proud of my public service and my proven track record. I've been the president of the trustees for the last 4 years. The last 2 years that I was elected as president, there was 4 Democrats on the board, and I was the only Republican. I'm very proud of the fact that my colleagues on the board believed in me enough and the job that I was doing to support me as president regardless of political position. I think that's a testament not only to myself, but to the other members of the board as well, and a great example of what good local government is all about. We put aside our differences and we focus on our similarities. We work together to do what is right and what is in the best interest of the town. That is what I've done during my time as trustee and what I hope to continue to do in the future. Thank you.
Nick Krupski.
Hi, my name is Nick Krupski. I'm running for re-election for a 3rd term as Southold Town trustee. I'll try not to let the speaker glare. I think Glenn did that on purpose, to be honest. Thank you to the Civics for having us out here, and I always like coming here. This historical building, and Orient's just always been a special place to me. I did some wildlife management at the Southolds a couple of years ago. It's a beautiful place to come out here and spend some time. So a little bit about me. I was asked 8 years ago to run for trustee, and it's something that it had always been in the back of my mind. I didn't necessarily plan on doing it this young, but when I was asked, I had the time, and I talked to my wife, and who at the time we were just dating, and it seemed like the moment to take a leap. Part of the reason that I was so interested in the position is aside from watching my father be a trustee for 20 years and kind of growing up and seeing him care about the issues in the local creeks. I was born and raised on the farm in Poquatuck. I spent a lot of time in Mud Creek and East Creek there, crabbing and clamming and snapper fishing when I was able to sneak away from irrigation pipe carrying, which is that was hard to do sometimes. But that time spent in the creeks made me have a real passion for the environment. So that's why I went away to school for geology, environmental science. I completed a bachelor's in that, then I came back to the island and completed a master's in biology and education. During that time, I had internships with Cornell Cooperative. I did a lot of habitat restoration, Old Spartina and Zostera. I also was in there, my early internship work was in the Scout program, which is, right out here in the harbor. It's just been a real passion of mine. I traveled around the country at different Superfund sites, really horrible pollution. I've seen what can happen. And that's why I want to be the trustee and strike that balance. Currently I live right in Cutchogue, still down the road from Mud Creek with my wife and 2 daughters. I have a son on the way any minute. He's actually a week late. So hopefully I don't have to run out of here today, but I've been saying that for a week now. So, but I'm really doing this for them. And, I've had a great time working with Glenn Goldsmith for 8 years. We have a great team of trustees right now, really passionate, caring people. I'm also standing up here with a great slate of people. I'm really proud to run with my father. Everyone up here is really dedicated to public service and has been dedicated to public service for their whole lives pretty much. So my time is up. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me, and I appreciate your support.
Now we have the Southold Town receiver of taxes, Kelly Fogarty.
Hi, thanks again for the Civics for hosting us again today, and in this beautiful historical building. I'm Kelly Fogarty. I'm seeking re-election for the office of tax receiver. Born and raised on the North Fork, I make my home in Mattatuck along with my husband of 30 years. We have 3 grown children, and recently we welcomed our first grandchild. I built my business in Mattatuck. As a certified public accountant, I serve primarily the residents of the North Fork. I enjoy serving the community by volunteering on the boards of many organizations. I'm the longtime treasurer of the Mattatuck Chamber of Commerce, the past president of the Board of Trustees of the Mattatuck Laurel Library, the former treasurer and current board member of the North Fork Environmental Council, and I served as a catechist for Sacred Heart Parish for 15 years, teaching 6th graders. This community has been very good to me, and it's important for me to give back using my strengths as a financial professional. I bring experience and integrity to the office of the tax receiver. I appreciate your support. Thank you very much.
Now, because you've been so nice and quiet and respectful, you can give a round of applause to everyone. All right, now we're going to start the question and answer part of our program. The first person to be speaking will be Al Krupski. We did a coin toss. Anyway, to decide which party would go first. So, Al, you get the first question. You won. Mike has just come to you. Just to go over it, during this portion of the program, the candidates will get 2 minutes to answer. And the first question is about community character. Okay? The comprehensive plan is a full build-out analysis for each hamlet with the resulting numbers of houses and buildings that can be possible even with our limited infrastructure. What specifically will you do to protect the community character of Southold Town from the cumulative impact that would result if all of these properties were fully developed? And how will our public resources, water, roads, fire protection, schools, etc., be maintained if this were to occur?
Thank you. So years ago, there's all these different levels of regulatory authority over development. Some are local land use and zoning, some are based on wastewater treatment. But a lot of things were, and if you look at Nassau County and Western Suffolk, you can see how the development has like unfolded out towards the east end. And years ago, people have told me Suffolk County Health Department thought that Levittown would just be folded out all the way to Montauk and all the way to Orient. And it was a reliance on public sewers, there was a reliance on public water that would enable this kind of development. There was really, I think, lack of consideration for the impacts of traffic, public safety, the impacts of schools. It was just and the burden it puts on our environment. If you look at the beach closures, and as a Suffolk County legislator, look at the notices of beach closures. All summer long, there's beach closures in Western Suffolk because they have a lot of pathogen loading after rainfall. On the east end, there's been a big push to try to mitigate that, and so because you live out here on the water, you want to be able to go to the beach, you want to be able to raise shellfish, and not have that impact of pathogens in the water, shutting down your commercial shellfish, your residential shellfish opportunities. So land preservation is really the critical component to protecting our quality of life and protecting our environment here, because the less homes you have, intuitively you have less traffic, you have less mass loading of your wastewater, and you have less impacts and less demand on services. And that's why people think, of course, you live in Southold, your taxes are so high. Go further west in Suffolk and see how high the property taxes are there. So, less development, land preservation program has to be robust, it has to be funded, and it has to be mechanically functional.
Once again, the question is, the comprehensive plan is a full build-out analysis for each hamlet with the resulting numbers of houses and buildings that can be possible even with our limited infrastructure. What specifically would you do to protect the community character of Southold Town from the cumulative impact that would result if all these properties were fully developed? How will our public resources, water, road, fire protection, schools be maintained if this were to occur?
I would get involved with every hamlet individually and find out their needs, because there's different hamlets. Mattatuck is different than Orient. They have different needs, they have different housing, they have different reasons why they want to keep their area that way. Some areas you could develop a little more than others, but you would have to deal with the Department of Health and have all the setbacks. If you have well water, there's a certain distance. If you have public water, you can be closer. So dealing with the Department of Health, the DEC, we would mitigate the development of our land out on the North Fork to keep it the way we want. So dealing with all the legal agencies, government agencies, we would control the growth as much as we can. Thank you.
Okay, now we're in Orient, we're surrounded by water. The next question is going to be on coastal resilience. So the town of East Hampton has done a superb job of creating a community-wide coastal resilience plan. The proposed town budget for next year includes $100,000 for resiliency planning. What are the steps that the town board should take to mitigate the effects of climate change and build in resiliency? Would you support continuing to do the work of creating a town-wide coastal resilience plan, including appropriate funding and a timeline for that process? Al?
So in 1991, the town took over the Coastal Erosion Hazard Act from New York State, and it was a departure from the town trustees doing the wetland code. Now they had jurisdiction on the bay and the sound. It was a little bit of a shock. Now you had to look at these coastal dynamic forces that before we hadn't had to have jurisdiction over. We got very little help New York State Department of State, and very little help from New York State DEC. And every part of the, and I'm preaching to the choir here with 2 trustees in the room, but and a bunch of past trustees here, but every part of the coastline is different. Now, what I have to deal with as a trustee is different today, because now with sea level rise, it was a complete game changer. We have much larger storms, much more frequent storms, and the flooding, sunny day flooding that we get with moon tides. So the county, and it was Bridget Fleming's initiative, I was part of that. The county came up with not a coastal resilience plan, but a county-wide infrastructure plan dealing with sea level rise and coastal resiliency. And there was a priority list of how to address different county facilities, knowing that sea level's rising. So there was $500,000 put in the capital budget. I sit on the capital budget work group. I chaired it for many years at the county. I was able to get my colleagues to put in another $500,000 so that we could have, going forward, there would be some funding there should we seek to address it in some fashion. I really applaud the Southold Town Board for putting money into a coastal resiliency plan. It's something that the different agencies in town, both the trustees and ZBA and planning, working with our other partners, regulatory partners, DEC and Department of State, as well as Suffolk County DPW with the roads and New York State DOT, they have to work on. These are long-term issues.
The town of East Hampton has done a superb job of creating a community-wide coastal resiliency plan. The proposed town budget for next year includes $100,000 for resiliency planning. What are the steps that the town board should take to mitigate the effects of climate change and build in resiliency? Would you support committing to the process, to the work of creating a town-wide coastal resiliency plan, including appropriate funding and a timeline for that process?
The answer to that would be yes, and I don't believe 100,000 is probably enough. In today's market, when you want to do work along your coastline, whether it be through hardening of the shores or raising the grade, road work or drainage, 100,000 is not enough money. I would ask the board to give us more money so that the appropriate work can be done to secure the shoreline, secure people's safety, and secure our hamlets. Thank you.
Okay, next question. Trustee. The town's preliminary annual budget does not give information about the expected services and accomplishments the town will be providing for its residents in the coming year. Would you be willing to advocate for a new style in presenting the budget that describes the services and expected results so that taxpayers can understand the benefits they are receiving and be able to measure success?
Yes. We're at the end of working on, and I was not on the work group this year for the operating budget for Suffolk County. It's a $4.1 billion budget. There's over $1.1 billion in contingencies because we know that there's things that are going to happen. It's an actual structurally functional budget. When you do the budgeting, and I know how the county executive does his budgeting throughout the year, and then the legislature gets to meet with all the department heads, and it's a public process, but the public's not engaged at all, almost not at all. And driving the hot dog, we sit at those meetings, and it's really just a county staff that's there. So in this case, in a small town, it's really critical that that's why this is so encouraging, that the residents are part of the process and say, what do you think? Are we spending too much money here, or are there needs elsewhere? You know, I'm glad the Coastal Resiliency Project came up, because East Hampton has a mixed record, because they put all the sandbags on the shoreline and hardened the shoreline in Montauk, resulting in a huge loss of beach. So it's difficult as a municipality to operate without public input, and that's when the government is at most effective.
town's preliminary annual budget does not give information about the expected services and accomplishments the town will be providing for its residents in the coming year. Would you be willing to advocate for a new style of presenting the budget that describes the services and expected results so that taxpayers can understand the benefits they are receiving and be able to measure results and success?
That answer is also yes, and we would sit down with people from, again, different hamlets and explain to them what's going on in their hamlet, where the money's being spent, and if they need a further explanation of it, we can put that into the budget. Maybe there could be some sidebar of how your money's being spent, where it's being spent, where it's come from, and have the community have input in it. You know, if there's some money in a budget for something that hamlet doesn't want, then maybe we can take it out, put it someplace else, and show the people where you moved it to, so they know where their tax dollars are going. And that's a big concern of everybody. We're paying taxes, what are we getting back? So we might have to define exactly where every dollar is being spent. It might make the budget, you know, more paper, but if that's what the voters are looking for, then that's what you give them. Thank you.
Okay, this is the last question for supervisor candidates, and this is on Plum Island. What are your thoughts regarding the future of Plum Island? If Plum Island becomes a national monument, what impacts do you foresee on our communities, particularly the hamlets of Orient and East Marion?
So in 2008, when I was on the town board, and it was a shock when General Services Administration came to the town and said, we're renting Plum Island for sale to the highest bidder, and you're gonna help us in some fashion, but you don't have any, and you have no alternative. This is what we're going to do. And we were in shock growing up out here. We knew a lot of friends and neighbors who worked on Plum Island. Animal disease research facility, world-class facility. You look at food security. This is kind of research is necessary. Looking at a big country with a lot of food production, we need that kind of research to happen here. Everybody was kind of taken aback that they would consider selling it to fund building another facility. So we came up with an idea. I said, why don't we rezone it upon sale? Because there was no zoning on the island at the time, because we had been in federal hands for so long. So we went to the town planner and we said, look, can you come up with some sort of zoning that would give the town the control over this upon sale? Since it's in private, once it's in private hands, the zoning would be in place. And there were two zones. One is around this world-class lab that would stay as a world-class lab. It's about 125 acres. And it would include very limited residential in case there had to be visiting scientists or people staying over because of weather events. There would be some potential for renewable energy production, but the remainder of the island, over 600 acres, would remain in its natural state, and it was owned that way. The federal government was completely taken by surprise. They never thought the town could do this or would do this, and we did it. But now that the decision is made of the fate of the island, maintaining an island between security and transportation is very expensive, but at least the town has a seat at the table, and public input's going to be important
I agree with Al on that one, that the zoning is the best way to control what goes on over there. It is definitely the best for all of us. We should all have some input at that table to make sure the zoning keeps that island as rural as it can, as preserved as it can, and it doesn't affect Orient Point or the North Fork. So yes, through zoning, that is the best way to control the growth on that island. Thank you.
Okay, so now we're going to move to our next round of questions. And the first question, these are for the town board candidates. And we're going to do it in the same order. Well, let me actually tell you the order so that we know ahead of time here. then Gwen Schroeder, and then Jill. Okay, so the first question is on affordable housing. What is your vision for affordable housing? There's often strong opposition to new multifamily affordable housing developments and workforce housing. How can affordable housing be designed to enhance a sense of community? How would you incorporate your vision into smaller hamlets like Orient and East Marion without negatively impacting them? Anne first. Anne Smith.
Yeah, I'm gonna say. That's an excellent question, and one that I've heard talked about at many forums. I'm currently serve as a volunteer on the Southold Town Housing Commission, and work with Jill, who's been the liaison, in getting that housing plan put in front of the board, and getting the voters giving the voters the opportunity to vote on the revenue source to help with really tackling this issue. So my vision, how would I design this? I think I would start with that housing plan. I would work very closely with the Housing Commission. And I agree that we do need to get into each hamlet and have those focus group conversations, because where housing goes in terms of whether it's funded through the plan or simply following the smart growth principles outlined in the plan, which is our guide for this process. We need to set benchmarks with each hamlet. Where should they go? Should they be on people's property as affordable dwelling units? Should they be some cluster housing? Should we be repurposing? Should we be looking at mixed land use opportunities? The Housing Commission right now has been talking about getting out there in the communities and looking at existing structures that are in the hamlet centers and wondering about, could we repurpose some of these properties? And how can we then get developers back at the table, because they've been so discouraged by the inability to get projects moving through a process. I think if they see that the community is involved and they're going to get behind projects, you're going to hear Gwen talk about not being able to build our way out of this. Gwen is very clear on some of the issues on housing, and I would love to work with her on it. I think really getting with the communities, talking to people. I was at the Economic Development Forum a few weeks ago, and one of the issues the local business people brought up was housing and labor shortages. I think we need to connect those dots as well.
Thank you. First, I wanted to just say, I'm not quite sure why the questions were separated, just because each member of the town board and the supervisor only has one vote. So all these issues pertain to everyone up on this dais. And if I become the town board member, I'm going to empower town board members. They'll have their own offices, they'll have their own legislative aid, and we really got to get to that point. Regarding community housing, I'm 110% in support of the community housing plan that talks about allowing low-interest loans for not-for-profits, to create ADUs, for farm labor housing, to renovate existing community housing, first-time home buyers, and also low-interest loans for business owners who want to create apartments in their commercial facilities. But what I am a hard no, and I said in the beginning about these high-density apartment complexes, I'm a hard no, I would never vote for it. It is the antithesis of our community character. However, we have to do something, right? And what I would recommend is that we use this community housing fund, which will generate about $1 million a year, to construct manor homes that look from the street to be like a nice, lovely home that would have 3 units within it. I would also crack down on short-term rentals to bring those houses back into the year-round rental market. Also, ADUs are only supposed to be rented to people on the community housing registry. We need to enforce that and bring that in. And then also, as Ann said, the adaptive reuse. We have buildings such as where the mega hotel is slated for, the old Capital One building. That would be amazing for community housing. There's also a place across from the annex that's vacant. Would be amazing for community housing. But no apartment complexes.
Hi, so I agree with a lot of what Steve said and Ann said. I was on the Poquatuck Hamlet stakeholder group, and what we decided, our hamlet, if you look at Poquatuck, it's really tight. And I brought in a zoning map, and I said, you know, some of the hamlets extend all the way from the main road to the north road. Poquatuck's is very tight. We knew we were gonna get development in the heritage. So we did leave room for development. There was a proposed development in Poquatuck. I'm not, you know, I grew up in Brooklyn. I don't wanna say Southold to look like Brooklyn, but we need to build some new units. And I think particularly for East Marion and Orient, so the ADU I think would work best for people in your community. And we have to find out why people aren't taking advantage of that here and make it more palatable for them. And I agree, we need to do low interest loans. The county also has low interest, actually a grant for first time homeowners. Their definition of first time homeowner is somebody that hasn't, I don't know, is it 3 or 4 years, hasn't owned a home in 3 or 4 years. Maybe we could tighten that up a bit. But I think particularly where your water table is somewhat high in Orient, and I just want to go back to the coastal. When I drove over here today and went across the causeway, the tide was so high. Bad storm, you know, and when you talk about resiliency, we got to get New York State to raise that road. So one of the ideas I had, I'll say it real quick, is the town should buy land with some of that money. They should hang on to the fee title, and they should do an RFP for developers. Let them know what we want, and then let them bid on it. And, you know, that's a way to keep affordability affordable in perpetuity, because again, as Ann said, we can't get our way out of this, so thanks.
So I've been working on the housing plan for the past 15 months with the stakeholders of this town. And under the statute of us building this plan, the stakeholders had to be from every aspect of the community, bankers, insurance, real estate. And, you know, I picked people and asked them if they want to be on it. And we got a great group of people that were smart, involved, and worked diligently on this plan and put this plan together. And it's a plan that was just adopted. It's 81 pages. It's on the town website. All these ideas that have been spoken about here are all good, and it's going to take all of them, and that still won't make a dent in our issue. Housing problem is all over the country. Cost of everything, you know, has, and the wants of people have raised the cost of everything, and we have to, right now the town is going over our zoning that was developed in '89. That has to be really looked at as far as housing in the different hamlets. This is your plan. This is a community plan. And as we go further in developing this plan, we will take the stakeholders' input about, you know, what they want to see in their plan. I am for, we have these beautiful historic houses all over town. I am for, you know, let's repurpose them. If you have a couple that doesn't need this old house, this big house anymore, but they don't want to move, let them do an accessory apartment and maybe move into the accessory apartment so they can rent out the bigger part of the house for a family. There's so many different avenues and ways we can stack monies to help younger people. It's for all generations, and I look forward to continue working hard on this plan as I go forward when I'm elected.
Okay, let's go on to the next. Actually, that.
Okay, so this question is on jobs. Many of the brightest students who graduate high school and go on to university move away permanently due to the lack of good job opportunities for them on the North Fork. What ideas do you have to create well-paying, year-round jobs that would help retain them? Anne? Yeah.
I'm worried about that.
board does support those who do. We have excellent opportunities both within our schools, our local schools, and our local community college. I think there are lots of ways we could be supporting entrepreneurs, businesses. I don't know if anyone here has heard of the new project. It's just in Riverhead called the East End Food Hub. But ideas where we can create opportunities to incubate ideas. My dad was actually president of the first high technology incubator at Stony Brook University, where young researchers could have all the facilities and infrastructure they need to do their research and not have to pay all the expenses that go with that. Again, at the community, the forum held by the Economic Development Committee, there was a robust conversation on how do we bring young people into internships, apprenticeships, not just a simple day of job shadowing. I also had an opportunity to tour the new wing at Poquatuck High School with Superintendent Petretti this week, and they have built, reused a building and built an incredible technology area where students will actually be working with certified carpenters and learning a skill in a trade that they can either take right into the workforce post-secondary, or perhaps they can do that work while paying for college and not incur so much debt. I think we're missing some partnerships. I think Stony Brook's a great opportunity. They were there offering their services to businesses. I don't think young people are going to make enough if I think it's something like 40% of current renters are cost burden. So I think we need to move the needle on that as one of our measuring tools. And then as a team, we can kind of get to some of this.
I agree with Ann that the government doesn't create business, but it creates an environment where business can be fostered. And since 1636, even before this town became a town, agriculture has been our economic engine. So agriculture needs to be supported by the town board. And I was very happy when the town board allowed processing on site. But it's not just ag, it's also, under the umbrella of ag is aquaculture and our oyster farmers. So when we have ag produce locally, then we have businesses that we should help that are in furtherance and support of ag, i.e. restaurants and even hotels. I'm anti-Holiday Inn Express mega hotels, but if hotels that are in the size and scope of the existing character, because again, since the railroad came to Southold, hotels have been here since 1844, I believe. So we are a resort type destination, but minor hotels would be okay. And then also maritime jobs. Again, this is all jobs that are connected with our environment. So that's where I would focus my efforts if I was able to become your town board representative.
So we do have good jobs here. Some of our biggest employers are Conic Landing, Eastern Long Island Hospital, San Simeon by the Sound, and all the schools. The problem is those people that work in those jobs don't live here. So those things are connected. When I worked at San Simeon back in the 1980s, most of the people I knew lived in Greenport and Cutchogue. I talked to a young woman at an affordable housing event, and she said, they're all temps now. They're people that come from elsewhere. So the same thing with teachers. Teachers have to travel. Somebody I went to high school with, I thought she lived on the main road. She grew up and she was living in her childhood house. She moved to Calverton. So we do have the jobs. I think there are other things. We become a service economy, and I think we have to have a better balance between, innovation. I mean, we have a couple of innovative businesses in Greenport and in Cutchogue. They're under the radar. People don't hear about them too much, but we do have good paying jobs. I was a nurse. I made good money. Teachers make good money. They just can't afford to live here. And one of the things that, because I live on a main road and the housing plan says 2,000 people a week commute here, and I'm very acutely aware of that because they go right past my house. And that's an issue for air quality and just quality of life. So I think if we try to tackle the housing issue, people with great ideas to start innovative companies will be able to come, and that's what I think is most important. Thanks.
I think the town board's role in creating jobs is to foster all the businesses here, agriculture, mom and pop stores, restaurants. And the way I've done that is 5 years ago, we changed the code. First of all, to have workers out here, they need a place to live. And so it definitely is tied in with housing. And that's why I'm so passionate about making this housing plan work for all generations. And 80% of our workforce now lives outside of Southold Town. They might have grown up here or whatever, they can't afford here. So we need to foster the businesses that we have existing here. And by doing that, one thing we did 5 years ago, we changed the code to allow accessory apartments in existing buildings. We have a business in Mattatuck that purchased 2 houses that are across the street from his business. They're older farmhouses, and he's split them and went through the permit process and made apartments in them. And his work staff live there with their families. So that creates more jobs, because then that means somebody who doesn't want to commute, that wants to be in this community, wants to have their kids go to our school, they can live here, work here, and have the quality of life that we all deserve. There's many more things that we can do with our code to foster these businesses. We have a robust economic development committee that is out there trying to work with all the businesses. I asked for the Youth Bureau position to be a full-time, so we can continue to work with the schools and connect the schools with the businesses. For people who don't want to go to college, they can do trade. There's a lot of talent in this town, and we have to keep it in this town. Thank you.
All right. Next question. Given the situation with PFOAs in the village of Orient, what are your thoughts about providing adequate and clean water now and in the future for our hamlets? Would you expand testing to other hamlets? What restrictions on water use would you support to ensure that we continue to have enough water for our residents? Okay. What are PFOAs? PFOAs.
Say it so we can hear.
Right, okay.
So they're called forever chemicals. At this point, we can't get rid of them. We can filter them out. And Orient has had a testing program for the last year and a half, almost. It's been going on for some time, and it continues. So we don't have all the results yet, but they are considered hazardous.
Cancer causing, in fact, and they're in many of our products.
Have the questions that the candidates been asked is this now open to the public?
Not yet.
Okay.
We may not have time for that because we have to be out of
Okay,
here.
well, if you don't have time for it, you didn't plan this very well. Now, no matter how good a committee is, it cannot anticipate the needs of the community. Okay, now, in communist countries, meetings are controlled. It's determined what can be said. Nothing is left to the public. In a free society, you should want to find out what the public wants, not just what the committee wants.
Thank you. Well, we may have a little time afterwards to talk about this, all right? Let's get on to the next question.
Only if you believe that people are important.
We'd like to move on. We the people would like to move on. Excuse me, these questions came
speak for yourself. If you don't want to speak, then you have a problem as a member of the public. You should be asking.
You were given a chance to say, sir, yes.
They had a chance.
We solicited
There's no
questions
opportunity
from
to
the-
talk for the public. If you like that, I question your sanity.
Okay, our next question. Okay, is. You haven't finished answering the water question, right? Right, answer, go ahead, answer
All
the
right,
question.
well, I have a question, I think I do.
Okay, you want me to read it again?
Okay, good.
Given the situation with PFOA, PFAS, in the village of Orient Water, what are your thoughts about providing adequate and clean water for hamlets? What restrictions on water use would you support to ensure that we continue to have enough water for our residents?
Thank you. When we bought our home in 1985, we were on well water, and we had to get our water tested to get our mortgage, and as a result, we had to install a water treatment system because there was chemic in our water. So yes, anywhere where there are wells, I think we should be keeping track of that and looking at what's the human impact and what's going on with our water. The three of us attended the forum that you held here at Poquatuck Hall with Mary Ann Taylor. Seems like 100 years ago now. But I re-listened to that video, which you can find on the website. It's really well done. So I think taking hold of the problem together, as a town councilwoman, I think it would be really important that we look at where we can regulate and where we can educate. Because reducing nitrogen, reducing the use of fertilizers, pesticides. I met with a woman who, when we were out campaigning, worried that her neighbor was spraying for mosquitoes on her property, and now she doesn't have butterflies and bees on her property anymore. So there's a lot of, back to the word interdependence. Degradation of our water. When I was asked to screen with the Democrats to be considered for a candidate, the first question was, what are your top 3 environmental issues? And mine were water, water, and water, because without that, all of these other issues are hard to tackle. So I think the town can work with, Mark Terry made a great presentation and some really strong recommendations out of the newly formed Water Commission. I think the town does need to lean on some experts, like a hydrologist, whether it's somebody who works in town hall or we bring in. This has to be a #1 priority right next to issues around climate change, because they're all really connected.
I agree with Ann. Water, to me, you got our issue that we're having with our community character, and that's one, and 1A is water, or vice versa. We're a sole aquifer community, and regarding PFAS, the technology is just not there yet on an individual basis to screen out those chemicals. However, what I would do as a town board member, is install irrigation limitations. So we have odd and even days for when you can irrigate your lawn. I would want to purchase open space for recharge of water. I would want to use WQI funds to give grants for people to install IA systems to take the nitrogen out of the water. And I would also require IA systems to be installed anytime there's new construction, Department of Health requires an upgrade or a renovation or expansion. These are ways that we can deal with our water and the health of our water.
Sorry, it's okay. So actually, we do test for PFAS. They actually test them down to 4 parts per trillion, because that's how toxic they are. And PFAS are ubiquitous in our environment. They're in, nonstick pans, they're in our clothing, they're in fire retardants. It's hard to get rid of them. But we are at a crossroads. So Suffolk County Water Authority wants to bring in a $4 million pipe into Southold from the Pine Barrens, because they say we have a quantity issue. And they acknowledge that most of that extra water is used for lawn irrigation. So I agree with Steve, we have to have better conservation programs. So everybody needs clean potable water, right? That's, should be a human right. So it's up to the community as a whole, because once the pipes come, it'll be easier to develop. That's a given. So we have to decide as a community, what do we want? I think the POET systems, we need more research, the point of entry treatment systems, like Ian was talking about, they do a pretty good job, but we have to, have some information. I support what you guys did in Orient, it was wonderful, because there's a lot of conflicting information out there. Do we have enough water? Don't we have enough water? So we really, as a town, need to understand that better. So I would support that sort of study. There's a lot of work done at the county level. They did a sub-watershed study, which is very, very detailed. And unfortunately, on this ballot this November was supposed to be a funding mechanism at 8th penny sales tax or 80% sales tax to fund innovative alternative systems. And one last thing, Al and I learned this week that the only toilet paper that doesn't have PFAS is Continental. So that's true. We heard that from an environmental person, so thanks.
So I wholeheartedly supported our new water committee because we need, the town board, we're 6 people, we need, the help in gathering information, the newest technology, the newest information. Orient is our most sensitive hamlet when it comes to groundwater, and also our bays and creeks. So we have to, but it also comes from the west, so we have to be careful what we do with the west and maintain our water quality west so that water quality can be maintained here. Again, I'm going back to zoning. Zoning can control a lot of construction or try to temper down the construction. And then the other part of this is education. You can see some reusable bottles up here, you can see some plastic. We can all do our little part of, sorry. To call you what we have. But it's just an example. My son graduated from SUNY Purchase with a Bachelor's of Science, and he got the first A+ in his final thesis in 20 years in the sciences. And he did his thesis on microplastics in our water. And when you're eating that shellfish, and when you're eating that, you have microplastics in it. And it's about education. And we have to keep our water clean in many fronts. And part of that is our, let's explore the technologies of our wastewater. Let's educate people not to, use as much water. I'm on the tree committee, and we have a code ready to be presented to the town board so people don't clear cut their properties when they come out here. And that's very important. So that's, there's a lot of things that I like to continue to work on, and, but like I said, the education, everybody has a part.
We have time for one question from the audience, because we really have to be out here. There's a funeral that's coming in out of us, we really can't travel.
One question, right?
One question.
That's it.
all we have time for, really.
Sir, I'll stay after if you have any questions, just so you know.
You want
I have a question, okay? People in government have to anticipate problems. We have potentially some very serious problems. We all love it here. It's perfect. It's as close as you can get to heaven. And it's safe. Now, the president and the governor of New York State are pushing for felons to be released without bail. When this happens, they commit more crimes. Now, this is going to filter down to you, and I don't know if there's anything you can do at this level to fight it.
Okay, well, let's ask,
No. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Is that something that we can address on a local level? Would you like?
guess I start with you.
Sure, as, you know, as elected officials, we represent everyone, and so, even though this town board, local town board wouldn't have, you know, anything talking about the bail reforms, when I was Suffolk County legislator, we wrote an all-18 letter, all the bipartisan letter to then Governor Cuomo, saying, look, this bail reform, we understand there's a lot of people who are trying to do something differently, but don't pass it immediately, give it a year, because we have the DA come, Suffolk County DA come in saying, this is gonna be really difficult, it's gonna be a huge transition, and it does affect the local justice courts. So, and resources for the towns. So we sent the letter to the governor, you know, obviously the bail reform went through. So the local municipalities are affected, they are, the DA, Suffolk County DA, we have to hire 42 new people for the DA's office for next year because of the bail reform in Suffolk County. He's looking for more people in this year's budget. So this is a local issue because it does affect the local courthouses. But as elected officials, we have to do our best to reach out and have good communication with all levels of government, so we can be, when you see someone, you can say from state elected office, look, this is a problem and here's why. And you have to really be organized and tell them why.
Could you just clarify one thing for me? At this point in time, do we have a requirement that felons should not put up bail?
I don't, legally, I don't know about that specific requirement, but I know that in government, we're all connected, and the impacts of the state laws. We actually, in next year's county budget, we're putting in over $20 million contingency fund for unfunded mandates that might come from New York State. You know, because we're faced with a lot of unfunded mandates now, and it's cost us money.
I see one other serious threat. You know, it's interesting that many of you people are so willing not to ask questions. This is the kind of people that people love. You want people who just did what the government did. Now you're laughing over there. But if you want this to continue to be a safe, wonderful place, you have to ask questions like this. I know that most of this room is against me, and I don't think it speaks well for you as Americans.
Please, thank you.
I want to be free. I don't know about you.
We do, so we'd like to hear from the rest of the candidates, if we can finish, okay?
These are closing statements, sir.
Donald Graham.
What I said.
Donald Graham, my qualifications that led me to believe the best candidate for supervisor. I have 37 years experience in the public sector, 37 years experience dealing with Suffolk County as a subcontractor. They call me on emergency situations. 37 years with the Southold Town in the direction of the police when they're needed. I've dealt with all the agencies, the DEC, the Department of Health, and the agencies in the town when I had to go for building permits on my properties. I'm a volunteer firefighter in Cutchogue, so I know what it is to deal with members of a fire department. I'm willing to work with all agencies, so I ask for your vote this November. Thank you.
You know, I'd like to thank everyone here, and to the gentleman that wants more questions. There are quite a few elected officials here currently, plus I'm sure any other candidates that aren't elected would be happy to answer your questions, but not right now because they're running the program. So we'd like to be
I
accessible.
appreciate that.
We all want to be public
That you're
servants.
treating me civilly. I appreciate that very much.
And as a public servant, you know, that's your job. You know, we work for everybody. You know, regardless if we agree or whether we disagree, we're all one community here. Now, I have to say that you know, a lot of the questions were environmental and really and some were about jobs, but the environment out here is our economy. And if we keep the environment clean, then you know, the Goldsmith families here, they've had a boatyard for 100 years. You need clean water to have a marine industry. You know, Reggie Tunnel's here with the oyster growing, you know, oyster ponds, you know, oyster business, you have to have clean certified water by New York State DEC to have an oyster growing business. And so that's really critical to take care of our environment, because once you lose that, once it's paved over, there is really no going back. The only thing I would suggest, if elected as supervisor, years ago, one sat on the Hamlet stakeholder group for Poquatuck. The town's doing this whole review of the town zoning and town codes and the uses in that zoning. I think there'd be value in having the Hamlet stakeholders reconvene, because I really think that looking at the Hamlets, our community is very diverse. Looking at all the different zoning codes and the uses therein would be very helpful if you got more community engagement. I know the town's hired a consultant, which is a good idea. We need a lot of community engagement in that. Thank you for having us.
Right. Jill.
Thank you for having us and listening to us. And I, as an elected official for so many years, and even working for the town, I'm always available. So if anybody wants to reach out to me to have a conversation on any subjects, I'm available for you. Part of my passion about doing this job is being part of a community. I was a 26-year member at Poquatuck Fire Department Auxiliary. My brother Frank is ex-chief and current treasurer in East Marion. My mother Paula Thorpe is an auxiliary at 81 years old, still in Orient at San Simeon. She does a lot of the fundraisers, and she's all over. She still golfs. I mean, it's just part of the community, and you have to. And that's how you know what the people want. I'm here. I'm your voice. Everybody, no matter what we agree with or not agree with. Yes, we have to be political now, but I've never been that person to say, well, this is what I'm doing because of the party. I do what's right for this town. I have common sense. I have the institutional knowledge. I have the roots in this town. My grandfather was ordained, my great-grandfather was ordained in the East Marion Baptist Church in 1902. Beautiful historic building that needs to be there. My great-grandparents, my grandparents, and my parents are all buried in East Marion Cemetery. I have roots here that are always be here. I always tease, my father passed away 3 years ago, and I tease my family. I said he moved from waterfront to waterfront because we have the plot in East Marion right on Marion Lake. So it's important to me to keep the natural resources we have, to invite people in this town, but educate them to what the history is of this town and why we have this history and why they wanted to be here and to keep this town the way it is. And I work for all of you, and I ask for your vote.
Hi, everyone. Thanks again for coming. I just want to give a shout out to our slate. I've known some of these folks for a long time. I've just gotten to know Bill and Ann a little bit better. And I said at the last forum, it's been exhausting, it's been inspiring, it's been illuminating, and I feel like I have, lifelong pals from these folks. I think my unique, I've worked outside government as an advocate and for a watchdog agency and inside government. I believe in government. I think government can do good things. And I don't have to really lecture this group about it because I know how civically engaged Orient is. But show up, let us know, whoever your elected official is, you have to be engaged. And I say to my kids all the time, if you're not engaged, you're giving your power away. Somebody else is going to make those decisions for you. So we, as an elected body, any elected body, can do things, but we really need the community to get behind initiatives that they want to see happen. And you have to make your voice heard at town hall. So I'm pleased to be running. I'm excited to be running. I think I could do a really good job. So I ask for your vote, and please do vote. Encourage your neighbors to vote this November 7th because it's an off-year election, and every vote really does count. So thanks for your time.
At this point in Southold's history, we're in the midst of a crisis. If this was an educational crisis, don't vote for me. If this was a medical crisis, don't vote for me. But the crisis that we're in, the emergency that we are facing, is a zoning crisis. And the next town board will be charged with rewriting the zoning code. So as a zoning expert, as Newsday recently referred to me as, I must be your vote. Now is not the time to vote for someone just because they're nice. Now is not the time to vote for someone just because they're in your party. Because it can have dire consequences for our community. My opponents, who are good people, want to bring Southold forward. Forward means change. And here are some examples of how members of town, high-density Hope wants 473 new homes to be built in this town, regardless of our zoning code, regardless of our comprehensive plan, and rezone certain areas to high density where 15 houses can be built per lot. Additionally, the mayor of Greenport kindly offered water and sewer for Greenport West to have apartment complexes built there. Southold ZBA chair has supported apartment complexes being in a permitted use in each and every hamlet, so every hamlet has their fair share of apartment complexes. A zoning update committee member suggested that community character is basically a four-letter word and inhibits change. Our zoning update consultant, a member of my opponent's party, believes zoning is inherently exclusionary, which is code for high density and more minimum lot size. I, on the other hand, am the opposite of change and a strict adherent to the comp plan's vision, which states that future planning be compatible with existing character, which is agricultural low density. I challenge everyone in this room to step outside their political comfort zone and vote for what is necessary to keep this town rural. Thank you.
I didn't say it last time, I'm Ann Smith, and I'm running for town council, and one vote is what I would have as a town councilwoman. And my one vote would be based on collaboration, working with the community, and every member of the town board, and making sure I'm making data-driven decisions, because what gets measured gets done. And you have to be an expert on organizational work, on how people work together. And if you don't do that as an elementary school principal and a superintendent, you're not going to keep your job. I continue to believe strongly in my work in the community, on the Coalition for Behavioral Health. I think we haven't spoken at all today about human wellness and our human connection. We need support for our youth and families, and I would continue to be a champion for that. As a recipient of the Helen Wright Prince Award, I think it's important that we speak out loud, that we follow the sign that you see coming into Southold Town, working toward becoming a bias-free community, and that takes teamwork and collaboration. So, going forward, I just want to close with a moment I had on Love Lane recently. I don't know how many of you know Leroy Helfiger, but he just turned 90 this week. A beloved member, I'll use his word, of the Poquatuck community. And he kind of like took my shoulders, looked me in the eye, like we're all trying to do right now, and said, Southold Town needs leaders like you who know this is a beloved community. And we are not separate hamlets, we are one town. And I think we need to take Leroy's words forward. He told me as a beloved community, we set the example, and I see Brian here, and he knows what I'm talking about. We set the example for other towns. And we look to other towns to see what's gone well and what's gone wrong to be sure we're on the right path. So I look for your support and really enjoyed our time together today.